Captain Guy was a gentleman of great urbanity and manner, and of considerable experience in the southern traffic, to which he had devoted a greater portion of his life. He was deficient, however, in energy, and consequently in that spirit of enterprise which is here so absolutely requisite. He was part owner of a vessel which he sailed, which was invested with discretionary powers to cruise in the South Seas for any cargo which might come most readily to hand. He had on board, as usual in the voyages, beads, looking glasses, tinder works, axes, hatchets, saws, adzes, planes, chisels, gouges, gimlets, files, spoke shapes, rasps, hammers, nails, knives, scissors, razors, needles, thread, crockery ware, calico, trinkets, and other similar articles. The schooner sailed from Liverpool on the 10th of July, crossed the Tropic of Cancer on the 25th, and launched to 29 degrees east and reached Sal, one of the Cape Verde Islands, on the 29th, where she took in salt and other necessaries for the voyage. On the 3rd of August, she left the Cape Verde and steered southwest, stretching over toward the coast of Brazil, so as to cross the equator between the meridians of 28 and 30 degrees west longitude. This is the course usually taken by vessels bound from Europe to the Cape of Good Hope, or by that route to the East Indies, and by proceeding they avoid the calms and strong contrary currents which continually prevail on the coast of Guinea, while in the end it is found to be the shortest track, and westerly winds are never wanting afterward by which to reach the Cape. It was Captain Guy's intention to make his first stoppage in Kerguelen's Land. I hardly know for what reason. On the day we were picked up, the schooner was off Cape St. Rogue in longitude 31 degrees west, so that when we found we were drifted probably from north to south, not less than 25 degrees. On board the Jane Guy, we were treated with all the kindness our distressed situation demanded. In about a fortnight, during which the time we continued steering to the southeast, with gentle breezes and fine weather, both Peters and myself recovered entirely from our effects of our late provision and dreadful suffering, and we began to remember what had passed rather than as a frightful dream from which we had happily awakened, and as events which had taken place in sober and naked reality. I have since found that the species of partial oblivion is usually brought about by sudden transition, whether from joy to sorrow or from sorrow to joy. The degree of forgetfulness is being proportionate to the degree of the exchange. Thus, in my own case, I feel now impossible to realize the full extent of the misery for which I endured during the days spent upon the hulk. The incidents are remembered, but not the feelings which the incidents elicited at the time of their occurrence. I only know that when they did occur, I then thought human nature could sustain nothing more of agony. We continued our voyage for some weeks without any incidents of greater moment than the occasional meeting with whale ships, and more frequently with the black or white right whale, so called in contradistinction to the spermaceti. These, however, were chiefly found south on the 25th parallel. On the 16th of September, being in the vicinity of the Cape of Good Hope, and the schooner encountered her first gale of any violence since leaving Liverpool. In this neighborhood, but more frequently to the southeast of Promontory, we were on the westward. Navigators have often to contend with storms from the northward, which rage with great fury. They always bring with them this heavy sea, and one of the most dangerous features in it is the instantaneous chopping round over the wind, an occurrence of almost certain to take place during the greatest force of the gale. A perfect hurricane will be blowing at any one moment from the northward to the northeast, and the next, not a breath of wind will be felt in that direction, while the southwest, it will come from all at once with a violence almost inconceivable. A bright spot to the southward is sure to be the forerunner to the change. The vessels are thus enabled to take the proper precautions. It was about 6 in the morning when the blow came on with a white squall, and as usual, from the northward. By 8, it had increased very much and brought down upon us one of the most tremulous seas that I had ever beheld. Everything had been made as snug as possible. The schooner labored excessively and gave evidence of her bad qualities as a seaboat, pitching her forecastle under at every plunge, and with the greatest difficulty struggling up from one wave before she was buried in another. Just before sunset, the bright spot for which we had been on the lookout made its appearance in the southwest, and an hour after we perceived this little head sail, which we carried flapping listlessly against the main mast. In 2 minutes more, in spite of every preparation, we had hurled on our beam ends as if by magic, and a perfect wilderness of foam made a clear breach over us as we lay. The blow from the southwest, however, luckily proved to be nothing more than a squall, and we had the good fortune to right the vessel without the loss of a spar. A heavy cross sea gave us great trouble for a few hours after this, but toward morning we found ourselves in nearly the condition as before the gale. Captain Guy considered that he had made an escape a little less than miraculous. On the 13th of October, we came in sight of Prince Edward's Island, in latitude 46 degrees by 53 south, longitude 37 degrees by 46 east. 2 days after where we found ourselves in Possession Island, after presently past the islands of Crozet, in latitude 42 degrees 59 south, longitude 48 east. On the 18th, we made Kerguelens, or Desolation Island, in the southern Indian Ocean, and came to anchor in Christmas Harbor, having 4 fathoms of water. This island, or rather this group of islands, bears southeast to the Cape of Good Hope, and is distant therefrom nearly 800 leagues. It was first discovered in 1772 by the Baron de Kerguelen, or Kerguelen, or Kerguelen, a Frenchman who, thinking the land to form a portion of an extensive southern continent, carried home information to that effect, which produced much excitement at the time. The government, taking the matter up, sent the Baron back in the following year for the purpose of giving his new discovery a critical examination, when the mistake was discovered. In 1777, Captain Cook fell in with the same group, and gave to the principal one named the island Desolation Island, a title which it certainly well deserves. Upon approaching the land, however, the navigator might be induced to suppose otherwise, as the sides of most hills from September to March are clothed with very brilliant verdure. This deceitful appearance is caused by a small plant resembling saxifrax. Which is abundant, growing in large patches of a species of crumbling moss. Besides this plant, there is scarcely a sign of vegetation on the island, except some coarse, rank grass near this harbor, some lichen, and a shrub in which bears resemblance to a cabbage shooting into seed, which has a bitter and acrid taste. The face of the country is hilly, although none of the hills can be called lofty. The tops are perpetually covered with snow. There are several harbors, of which Christmas Harbor is most convenient. It is first to be met on the northeast side of the island after passing Cape Francois, which forms the northern shore, and by its peculiar shape it serves to distinguish the harbor. Its projecting point terminates in a high rock through which it is a large hole, forming a natural arc. The entrance is in latitude 48 degrees by 40 south, longitude 69 degrees by 6 east. Passing in here, good anchorage may be found under the shelter of several small islands, which form a sufficient protection from all easterly winds. Proceeding on eastwardly from this anchorage, you can come to West Wasp Bay at the head of the harbor. This is a small basin, completely landlocked, into which you can go with 4 fathoms and find anchorage from 10 to 3. Hard clay bottom. A ship might lie here with her best bower ahead all the year without risk. To the westward at the head of Wasp Bay is a small stream of excellent water, easily procured. Some seal of the fur and hair species are to be found on Kerguelen's Island, and sea elephants abound. The feathered tribes are discovered in great numbers, and penguins are very plenty, and of these there are 4 different kinds. The royal penguin, so called for its size and beautiful plumage, is the largest. The upper part of the body is usually gray, sometimes of a lilac tint. The under portion of the purest white imaginable. The head is of a glossy and most brilliant black. The feet also. The chief beauty of the plumage, however, consists in 2 broad stripes of a gold color which pass along the head to the breast. The bill is long and either pink or bright scarlet. These birds walk erect with a stately carriage. They carry their heads high with the wings drooping like 2 arms, and their tails project from the body in a line with the legs. The arms, the resemblance of the human figure is very striking, and would be apt to deceive the spectator at each casual glance or in the gloom of the evening. The royal penguins, which we met on Kerguelen's land, were rather larger than a goose. The other kinds are macaroni, the jackass, and the rookery penguin. These are much smaller, less beautiful in plumage, and different in other respects. Besides the penguin, many other birds here are to be found, among which may be mentioned sea hens, blue petrels, teal, ducks, Port Egmont hens, shags, Cape pigeons, the Nellie, sea swallows, terns, seagulls, Mother Carey's chickens, Mother Carey's geese, or the great peterel, and lastly the albatross. The great peterel is as large as the common albatross, is carnivorous. It is frequently called the breakbones or osprey peterel. They are not at all shy, and when properly cooked are palatable food. In flying, they sometimes sail very close to the surface of the water, and with the wings expanded, without appearing to move in the least degree or make any exertion with them whatever. The albatross is one of the largest and fiercest of the South Sea birds. It is of the gull species, and taking its prey on the wing, never coming on land except for the purpose of breeding. Between this bird and the penguin, the most singular friendship exists. These nests are constructed with great uniformity upon a plan concerted between the 2 species. That of the albatross being placed in the center of this little square formed by the nest of 4 penguins. Navigators have agreed that in calling it an assemblage of such encampments a rookery. These rookeries have often been described by as my readers or listeners may not have all seen these descriptions. As I've shall have occasion hereafter to speak of the penguin and albatross, it will not be amiss to say something here of their mode of building and living. When the season for incubation arrives, the birds assemble in vast numbers, and for some days appear to be deliberating upon some proper course to be pursued. At length they proceed to action. A little piece of ground is selected of suitable extent, usually comprising 3 or 4 acres, and situated as near the sea as possible, being still beyond its reach. The spot is chosen with reference to its evenness of surface, and that is preferred which is the least encumbered with stones. This matter being arranged, the birds proceed with one accord, and actuated apparently by one mind, to trace out with mathematical accuracy either a square or other parallelogram, as may best suit the nature of the ground, and of the just sufficient size to accommodate easily all of the birds assembled, and no more. In this particular seeming determined upon preventing the access of future stragglers who have not participated in the labor of the encampment. One side of the place thus marked out runs parallel with the water's edge and is left open for ingress or egress. Having defined the limits of the rookery, the colony now began to clear of it every species of rubbish, picking up stone by stone and carrying them outside of the lines, and close by them as to form a wall on the 3 inland sides. Just within this wall, as a perfectly level and smooth walk is formed, from 6 to 8 feet wide and extending around the encampment, thus serving the purpose of a general promenade. The next process is to partition on the whole area into small squares exactly equal in size. This is done by forming narrow paths very smooth and crossing each other at right angles throughout the entire extent of the rookery. At each intersection of these paths, the nest of the albatross is constructed, and a penguin's nest in the center of each square. Thus, every penguin is surrounded by 4 albatrosses, and each albatross by a like number of penguins. The penguin nest consists of its hole in the earth, very shallow, being only just of sufficient depth to keep her single egg from rolling. The albatross is somewhat less simple in her arrangements, erecting a hillock of about 1 foot high and 2 in diameter. This is made of earth, seaweed, and shells. On the summit, she builds her nest. The birds take especial care never to leave their nests unoccupied for an instant during the period of incubation, or indeed until the young progeny are sufficiently strong enough to take care of themselves. While the male is absent at sea in search of food, the female remains on duty, and it is only upon her return of her partner that she ventures abroad. The eggs are never left uncovered at all. While one bird leaves the nest, the other nestling by its side. This precaution is rendered necessary by the thievish propensities prevailing in the rookery, the inhabitants making no scruple to purloin each other's eggs at every good opportunity. Although some rookeries in which the penguin and albatross are the sole population, and yet in most of them the variety of oceanic birds are met with, enjoying with all the privileges of citizenship, and scattering their nests here and there, wherever they can find room, never interfering, however, with the stations of the large species. The appearance of such encampments, when seen from a distance, is exceedingly singular. The whole atmosphere just above the settlement is darkened with the immense number of albatross mingled with the smaller tribes, which are continually hovering over it, either as going to the ocean or returning home. At the same time, a crowd of penguins are to be observed, some passing to and fro the narrow alleys, and some marching with the military strut so peculiar to them around the general promenade of ground